Yo fam, what is up? I am Sixy. My very first Mythic dungeon I completed this expansion was Brackenhide Hollow. It's possible most people didn't have a hard time with Decatriarch Wratheye, but we wiped once, so I thought it might be a good idea for me to go over what we learned, and maybe that'll help you out on your gearing journey. I'd really appreciate if you subscribe. Thanks. Let's jump in. Keep in mind that this dungeon is not in the current M+ rotation, so the first time you kill this boss should be the absolute hardest it will ever be until Season 2. Now, once the encounter begins, make sure that you are just inside this little ledge. Shortly after the fight begins, this green fog forms outside of the circle, limiting the encounter space, and if you are standing in this stuff, it deals massive damage. Now, the first ability this boss casts is Choking Rock Cloud. This is a frontal ability that can be completely dodged by everyone, including the tank. Getting hit by this ability deals moderate damage and applies a stack of Withering Rot. Withering Rot is a debuff that cannot be dispelled and reduces all damage dealt by 5% and can't stack. Choking Rock Cloud then coalesces into this green ball and will move around the perimeter of the room. If you stand in this green circle, it will silence you and apply stacks of Withering Rot. Now tanks, when you start the fight, you will want to pull the boss to the extreme edge of the room. Once Choking Rock Cloud is cast, you can move to the back of the boss, essentially in the center of the room, and you will not get hit by either the frontal nor the coalesced sphere. Directly after casting Choking Rock Cloud, Wratheye will then cast Decaying Strike. This is a tank mechanic that hits twice, it deals physical damage, and also applies 2 stacks of a healing absorb. You'll want to use a defensive to mitigate as much of this as possible. Immediately after casting Decaying Strike, Wratheye will cast Rotburst Totem. First, a green swirly will appear and deal damage to anyone standing in it. Afterwards, a stationary totem will spawn that repeatedly casts a spell called Rotting Burst. If a cast goes off, it will apply a stack of Withering Rot to the entire party. So you want to kill this totem as quickly as possible. During the encounter, Wratheye will gain energy, and at 100 energy, Wratheye will cast Withered Eruption. It deals AoE damage to everyone and puts a circle around every player. This circle will deal additional damage to anyone standing in another player's circle. The size of this circle is larger for every stack of Withering Rot the player has. As you can see in the screenshot, because I have more stacks of Withering Rot than the other players, my circle is larger. Withered Eruption will additionally remove all stacks of Withering Rot from the players, and the sum of those removed debuffs will be added to the boss in the form of a buff called Decaying Strength. This buff increases Wratheye's damage by 5% for every stack of Withering Rot she removed from the players. The stacks of Decaying Strength, the buff, will decrease with every successful melee strike on the tank. During this time, Wratheye's energy bar will not increase. Once every stack of Decaying Strike is removed, her energy bar will resume and the process will repeat. I think this boss is really interesting because at first it is a hard DPS check, but for any DPS that you lack, it becomes a tank and a healer check. And subsequently, every mistake really adds to the difficulty and can spiral the fight out of control. However, we won't see how crazy this fight can really get until Season 2 when it joins the Mythic Plus rotation. I hope you found this video useful. If you did, please consider dropping it a like. And if there's any bosses you'd like me to go over, please let me know in the comments. I'll see you out there on those keys. Peace.